But I think one of the most significant takeaways I learned over the last year is that
Welcome back to Aim in Practice, where I have the immense pleasure to sit down with a diverse array of practitioners, experts, and authors and really delve into their journeys and insights. I'm your host, Jess Reynolds, and today I am joined by my partner in all things, Breanne. Now, she has spent the last year doing some pretty intense research on what she's been calling the project.
like it's completely absurd to me that people would recommend that you set your prices based on.
It all started out with just trying to figure out if what she was charging for her sessions was too high or too low or average, or where did it land. But it turned out to be so much more than that.
I'd also say to anyone who is just thinking about switching to home-based or brand new RMTs, don't lower your rates too much just because you work from home.
Breanne offers invaluable advice to fellow therapists, especially those considering either transitioning to a home based practice or just starting out. She really emphasizes the importance of valuing their services appropriately, regardless of the setting.
She said to me once when we were just landing, just take a moment to really appreciate that everything that needed to happen to get you here today, it's already happened. And it's just a way to really help you drop into the present moment.
We end up talking about much more than just how to price your service. We dive pretty deep into what things really add a felt sense of value in your sessions and what any practitioner can do to incorporate these things into each session to really try and make it feel more valuable for our clients. And even though we talked about this project off and on throughout the year at home, there really are many insights that I was hearing for the very first time in this discussion. So enjoy this wonderful conversation with Breanne. All right, so before we jump into today's episode, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Jane, a clinic management software and EMR. Whether you're just starting to do your research or you've been contemplating switching your software for a while now, the Jane team understands that the process, well, it can feel intimidating. That's why their goal is to provide you with all of the onboarding resources you need to make the switch as smooth as possible. Jane offers a personalized call to set up your account, a free date import, and a wide variety of online resources to get you up and running quickly. And if you need a helping hand along the way, you'll have unlimited phone, email, and chat support, which is all included with your Jane subscription. Now, I gotta tell you, I've switched EMR softwares 4 times now. We won't get into why, but I've done it. And it really can be a nightmare. But when I made the switch to Jane, I can tell you from firsthand experience, it really was the easiest transition imaginable. And I finally feel like I have a system that does all the things I need and it's all in one place. So if you're interested in learning more, book a one-on-one demo at jane.app/switch. And if you decide to switch, don't forget to use the code AIM1MO at the time of sign up to receive a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. All right, well, let's talk about the project. It's been over a year now since you started this whole thing, and for myself, watching the entire process unfold has been pretty darn informative. I've certainly learned a lot as you went through this whole thing. But let's begin by describing what the project is, or what were your goals with this project when you first started the whole thing.
Yeah, okay. I'm curious what you learned through observing me work my way through these 12 different massages. But yeah, okay, I'll give you a little bit of backstory and kind of what inspired the project. So, back in December of 2022, I wanted a massage. It was busy season. And as far as I can remember, this would have been one of the first massages that I actually had paid for since becoming an RMT. I'd done some trades, of course, throughout the years, but this was my first paid massage. So I did a quick Google search to see what was available in my area, and I found a home-based practitioner. She said that she had over 20 years of experience and she was only charging $80 an hour. So that sounded like a great deal to me. So I booked in with her. And, the massage itself was fine. Like her technique, It was fine. It was actually probably more good than bad. But the overall experience was lacking. It's just not what I had quite hoped it would be. So, when I go for a massage, I'm hoping to receive the same kind of quality of care and attention that I give to my clients. So, what I mean by that is, if I have a client coming, I'll pretty much always get the treatment room set up 30 minutes before they get there. I go downstairs, I turn the table warmer on, I turn the hot towel warmer on, the essential oils, all the things. And I guess I was kind of just hoping that this same level of care would be given to me when I was finally in the paying client role. But it wasn't. And, being this was my first experience paying for a massage, I was disappointed. I had my own bar. I only had, the bar that I set for myself working with my clients. So that was my bar. I didn't know if it was high or low. Maybe it turns out that it's high. But I didn't know that. So it was a bit of a slap in the face, I guess. So I'll tell you about some of the details that happened. And I know that there's the risk of me sounding overly critical, but there were just some things I noticed that I probably wouldn't do if, I was the one treating. So, for example, I get there and I rang the doorbell and I had to wait for an unusually long time, which is fine. I could hear she was vacuuming. Also fine. She was getting the space set up for me. Great. Like, thanks for cleaning up your house for me. Awesome. I also vacuum before my clients come. We vacuum the house a lot.
Yes, we do.
Maybe she was just, had a client somewhere else right before. I don't know. Anyway, I was waiting outside for a while. I remember noticing it, not thinking anything of it, but I noticed. So I get inside the house and go inside the treatment room. And again, I know there's a risk of me sounding overly critical for noticing this kind of thing, but I noticed there's a big pile of laundry sitting in the corner of the treatment room. And I wouldn't. I'd have my laundry put away, like the ambiance of the treatment room for me matters a lot. I put care into it. So, all right, there's a pile of laundry in the corner. The massage might still be great though, right? So, we're about to get started with the massage and she says to me, "I use olive oil. I hope that's okay." And, you know, it wasn't exactly a question. It was more like a statement disguised as a question,
Yeah.
which is an odd way to say something. I didn't obviously say that it wasn't okay, even though in my head I thought it was a bit odd. I'm sure she has her reason for using olive oil. Um, I'm trying not to be too judgmental about it. Like maybe she's got like sensitive skin or whatever, but you'd think there might be something better than olive oil. So that was really the thing. It was really the olive oil moment for me that inspired or initiated this whole project. It was the olive oil.
We should call it the olive oil project now for moving forward because that's sort of the thing that started it all.
It was the olive oil indeed that started it all, yeah. So the moral of this story is that I left disappointed, I would say, and it's not because the massage itself was bad, it was the experience that left me feeling a bit disappointed. And even though I was disappointed in the experience, I learned some things. So I learned that I definitely needed to increase my rate, for
Mhm.
example. So at the time, I was also charging $80 an hour, same as her. And I just realized all of the things I was providing for $80 an hour that she was not providing. And by that, I mean, the hot towel warmer and the space heater and making sure the table warmer's on and ready to go and essential oils and cups and all of the things.
Mhm.
So I thought that I should probably reflect that attention to detail and care in my pricing. And that's how this whole thing started.
I remember as you finished that last experience, when you were telling me about the experience, there was like the description of the experience, but the thing that I recall most vividly that stuck out was your discussion of, I think I'm charging too little. That sort of realization of like, wow, I'm charging too little because I'm doing all of these things. And that idea of price, I mean, it's something that occurs to me regularly still, even at this point, after over a decade of being in, am I charging the right amount for the value that I provide, right? And I'm curious now, as you went through this process and sort of had that question in mind about how much should you charge for your prices, what did you use to determine the pricing of what you do?
Hmm. Yeah. So the first thing I did was just a lot of research. So I scoured the web for, publicly listed massage rates from over 50 different businesses. 25 of them were from home-based practitioners specifically, and then just over 30 of them were from clinics or spas. And what I found was that the average rate of a 60-minute massage for a home-based practitioner at the time, and just note that that was back in 2022, so over a year ago now. But what I found then was that the average rate of a 60-minute massage for a home-based practitioner in Calgary in 2022 was $96 an hour. And at that time I was charging 80. I also noted that there's a price difference between home-based practitioners, what they're charging for a 60-minute massage versus a clinic or a spa. There's around a $16, I think, difference. So you're going to save yourself a bit of money if you go with a home-based practitioner, and I think that's reasonable to some extent. A $15 difference. I don't know. We could probably have a whole conversation just about that. But yeah, just to give you some stats, the average rate of a 60-minute massage at a clinic or a spa in 2022 was around $112 an hour. So yeah, I also noticed that when I did that research, the range of what practitioners were charging was pretty significant. So the lowest price massage that I found in my research was $80, which was, of course, as you might expect, from a home-based practitioner. And then the most expensive for a 60-minute massage was $155 an hour, which, as you expect, was at a spa.
Mm-hmm.
That's a $75 difference, pretty substantial. So when I set my prices, it was obvious to me that I should probably take into account that I am a home-based business. So my rates are going to be a little bit more reasonable than what you might find at a spa or a clinic. So I used the data that I collected from the 25 home-based practitioners to help get a sense of, what felt right for me in terms of setting my prices. And I wanted to be around average. I'm slowly working my way up. I'm in my 4th year of practicing now to, one day probably being above average. But I didn't want to increase my prices too much too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, after 3 years of practicing, I felt like it was probably time for my rates to be a little bit more on par with average. When I was a new massage therapist, I was okay with charging a little bit less. I thought that was really reasonable for my rates to be around $80 an hour as a new RMT, just learning things. And I was happy with that because it was more money than I was taking home when I was working as an independent contractor, making 60% typically of whatever the clinic was charging. So $80 felt great for me for the first 3 years. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, it's time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as you explore this, and I'm pretty sure that research project, I'm pretty sure that there's a blog that we have on the
Mm-hmm.
website where all that data can be found. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for anybody who's interested in exploring that. But what I was curious about is you've got this range now of home-based practices from $80. What was the most expensive home-based one? It doesn't matter.
Ooh,
The number doesn't matter.
I have it. Looks like we've got 120 at the high end and 80 on the low end. So if
Okay.
we're just talking home-based, 80 to 120.
I mean, that's a pretty significant range, 80 to 120. Now, if one was just looking at that, just a regular consumer looking at that, they would probably make some assumptions as to what they would be getting from the $80 to $120 range, making some sort of value judgment based on the amount charged. So, when you were deciding this and going through this experiment, um, how did you sort of explore what value is at these different price points, right? Because if memory serves, you went to a bunch of different price points and
Hmm.
tried to figure out what am I getting when I spend $120 on a massage versus $80 on a massage.
Yeah. So the least expensive massage I got over this year-long project was at the Mount Royal University Student Clinic. And because I am an MRU alumni, I ended up paying only $20 for that massage. I think it's $30 for the public, but 20 for alum. But if we put that one aside, because it's a pretty significant outlier, if we put that 1 month aside, then the lowest priced 60-minute massage I got over the last year was at $75 an hour, and that was a new client promo rate. So I think her regular 60-minute was 85, but she did a promo rate for $75 an hour, which we could also have a little discussion about. I personally charge more for new clients, not less.
Mm-hmm.
But she charged less, which was great for me. Um, Probably not going to go back. Anyway, the most expensive massage I got over the last year was $115. So that's again a pretty substantial range, a $40 range within my 12 different experiences. And, the $115 massage, the most expensive massage, it actually ended up being one of my favorites of the year. It was definitely top three of the year for sure. So in this particular case, the value I would say was in the whole service and the experience, the service provided, including the whole experience. So even though she was more expensive, I still thought she provided the best value, which is kind of interesting. So she charged me more, but she provided one of the best experiences. She had a really nice treatment room. She rents her space from District Studios in Kensington, and I'm sure she pays dearly for that. But it's a nice space, free parking, and there's a nice reception area. Her room she had done. She decorated it very nicely. Just lots of little touches in her treatment space that I appreciated, especially as a fellow RMT. She knew I was an RMT, so she was like pointing out all of the things. Like she had memory foam on her massage table. Have you ever had a
Nice.
massage with memory foam
I've
on?
never had a massage with
No.
memory foam.
That was pretty impressive. And she had the special face cradle that was supposed to help with preventing congestion and like lines on your face and things like that. And a few little things for sale on her wall, a table warmer. She used gua sha. I still remember on my arms. It was so nice. And Japanese mint oil, cupping, all of the things. But what I remember the most about the experience was not just her technique and the ambiance of the room, but I also really liked her, like her therapeutic presence and just her as a person, which I think really adds. It's a significant part of the whole experience,
Mm-hmm.
especially for massage because we're working in such an intimate way with people
Yeah.
that to really have a therapeutic presence that allows people to let their guard down, I think is really important and probably not spoken about enough.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely agree with that. My experience has been the same. I mean, we'll talk a little about this a little bit more perhaps later on, but the technical aspect of giving a massage is certainly something that requires practice, and one can have good technique and bad technique, no question. So I believe technique matters, but therapeutic presence, it's such a game changer. Now, in your opinion, what was it that she did that gave her such a good therapeutic presence?
Hmm. What did she do? Well, she listened. Yeah, she listened about what I wanted to do. And I remember she repeated it back to me and we kind of like got on the same page about the treatment plan. I would say she didn't talk too much about herself during the massage. Like she really kind of she would engage in conversation with me if I wanted, which I did. I was curious about her experience. I find it so hard not to chit chat with other RMTs. I want to know about their experience. So, you know, she talked a little bit, but really followed my lead with that. And she's also a yoga teacher,
Hmm.
and I think there's something to be said about yoga teachers who are also massage therapists. They just, I think, have spent a little bit more time than the average RMT being with themselves and maybe, confronting their own stuff, that it really allows other people to just show up in a more authentic version of themselves.
As you evaluated these different practitioners and experiences that you had from the least expensive to the most expensive, and kind of determined what created value, was there anything that you came across that was like really low hanging fruit, like super easy, inexpensive things that doesn't involve somebody taking like another course that a practitioner could just add in to dramatically improve the overall experience?
Yeah, easy. This is
Easy.
easy for me,
Okay.
especially because I'm always cold. I think the simplest, most affordable thing is just get like a microwavable magic bag or beanie
Mhm.
bag or whatever you want to call it, like a rice bag. You can even make them yourself or order one online, whatever. Put it in the microwave for a couple of minutes before your client gets there and just put it on their feet. Warm up their feet. You could also buy a table warmer. It's a little bit more expensive than just buying a microwavable magic bag, or you could do both,
Mhm.
and just please just check on your client's temperature, you know, check.
Mhm.
Something I find in my own practice is that even people who are typically hot, like some of my clients are like, I don't want the table warmer on, I don't want any of that. But they'll still, for some reason, take the warm magic bag on their feet.
Mhm.
And even I have a client who's currently experiencing menopause, and so she's hot often, but she still loves the magic bags on her feet. And so often when I put the magic bags on people's feet, they're just like, "Oh my god, that's so nice." And it's such a little thing.
Mhm.
It's so easy, it's so inexpensive, and people really appreciate it, especially in winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate having cold feet during a massage.
I run hot, and I mean, like the majority of the time, I don't want the table warmer on, is
Right,
what I say.
right.
But when I do get on a table and there's a table warmer on, even though I'm still like, "Oh, okay, okay, fine, fine, fine. This is really nice. I enjoy the table warmer."
Mhm.
And another thing I really like about the beanie isn't just the heat, but I also like the weight, that feeling
Mm,
of weightedness.
yeah.
I also find it lets me just feel a little like I can sink a little bit easier.
Yeah, and we do use those like sandbags in yoga sometimes to just help people feel a little bit more present in their body,
Mhm.
or connected to the ground. It can be a nice kind of grounding technique for people who are maybe really in their head. So yeah, that's a good point too. It's not
Mhm.
just the heat, but it's the weight of it that can feel nice for some people.
Mhm. So we've got heat, something simple, some beanie bags.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other low bits of low hanging fruit that can really increase the perceived value?
Hmm. I mean, I like to use essential oils as aromatherapy. So when someone first gets on the table, typically what I'll do is I will open my little bottle of essential oil. It's usually lavender, and I'll always check with them first if they're okay with me using essential oil as aromatherapy. And I'll just hold it underneath their nose, and I'll have them take a breath in and just come into the space by using their sense of smell to really just land in the present moment. So yeah, essential oils can be nice. I typically use, lavender and eucalyptus for sure. Usually the eucalyptus for men. And I've had some men say that they really like that because they think it helps with their feeling congested. So that can be a nice little thing to integrate just underneath the face cradle, getting them to take a breath in, relatively inexpensive. And on that note, something else that I think is free for the therapist to start implementing that kind of elevates the experience is just helping the client to land when they first arrive on the massage table. So maybe that means, just having them notice how it feels to arrive here in their body on the treatment table, the next 60 minutes being, just for them. It's all about them. How does that land in your body? Maybe you're noticing your breath, seeing if you can deepen your breath. So, just these kinds of meditative type instructions or guidance that you can bring in right at the beginning to help people drop into their bodies, like out of their head into the body.
I remember listening to one of the scripts that you'd made for a workshop, which was very similar to that. You know, you've arrived, and I don't remember the words verbatim, but it was something along the lines of, everything you needed to do to get here has already been done.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember getting to the treatment room after I heard you saying that and really liking it and thinking this is such a great landing. And I said it and I
Oh,
felt so weird.
you felt weird?
I felt weird because
Why?
that's not my like natural way to interact with my
Mm,
clients, right? Like I almost felt like I needed to get the yoga voice and talk a little bit
mm,
softer. But what I figured out then is I can still say the exact same thing and create a landing, but in a way that works for me. Like
mhm,
just conversational. I could say, "Oh, it's great to see you, man. It's so cool that everything you've done to get here has already been done." You know,
mhm.
it's really cool how you can incorporate this landing in ways that work for the individual, so it doesn't have to just be this soft, we're
Script.
lying on the table script. It can
Yeah.
be adapted to fit the practitioner as well.
Yeah.
But I agree, it's so important. Obviously, very free and very completely free and makes a
Completely
huge
free.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if I should, like, start creating some content, like
Mm.
scripts, as you
Mm.
said, that people could use in their own way, because you're right. It might feel a little bit unnatural, but you could use the meaning of the script and find your own words and really just help your clients land.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that. I borrowed that from my somatic experiencing practitioner. She said to me once when we were just landing, just take a moment to really appreciate that everything that needed to happen to get you here today, it's already happened. And it's just a way to really help you drop into the present moment. And it's just making me think here now that one of the things that I think we ought to do when a client is arriving is check in with them about how their day was or how was their drive. There's nothing worse than having a stressful drive to your massage, right? If there's
Mm-hmm.
an accident or you think you're going to be late and your nervous system's all jacked up when you get there, like what can we do to really help our clients regulate their nervous system a little bit before we even put our hands on them? And it turns out there's a lot.
There's a lot,
Yeah,
and it's pretty simple.
it's simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after this year-long project that you've done, well, a little over a year now, but after this year-long project, uh, did you end up changing your prices?
Yeah. So my last massage was in December of 2023. And on February 1st, 2024, my rates are going up to $100 an hour, which is pretty average. There's a study that the Canadian Massage and Manual Osteopathic Therapist Association, also called CMODA, did in early 2023, where they asked over 500 RMTs about their rates. And these included both at home practitioners and also therapists working at spas and clinics and all of the different options we have available to us. And basically, what they found in that study was that the average rate for a 60-minute massage in a large Alberta city is $100.91. And you could
Very
probably,
specific.
yeah, very specific. You could probably also link that
Mhm.
study somewhere in the
Yeah, in the show
notes.
notes, I
Yeah.
will. I will. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you raised your prices,
Yep.
which I mean, I've done that a couple times, and for myself, the first few times certainly it was very, very uncomfortable for me. I had a lot of fear that was coming from it. There was a little bit of fear based on my own value, like, am I actually worth this much more? And then there was the majority of the fear came from, I'm going to lose clients. And just not knowing how to tell them in a way that would feel good for me and, you know, like feel natural and authentic. So I personally found that to be the most challenging part of the process. It's certainly the first few times I did it. So, in your experience, how did you go about letting your clients know that there is this price increase coming?
Hmm. Yeah. So, one thing I just want to start by saying is that after the olive oil incident in December of 2022, I immediately increased my prices by $10.
Okay.
Yeah. So, there was a $10 price increase that happened in December of 2022.
Hmm.
So, this is my second price increase in just over a year. And yeah, of course, for me, the first price increase was the hardest. Like going from 80 to 90, the first time I had to raise my rates was definitely the hardest. I was so afraid that I was going to lose clients. But my clients were so supportive of me. And again, with this most recent price increase of $10 that's going into effect next month on February, many of my clients were very supportive, especially the ones who came within the last year and are experiencing my price increase for the first time. They're saying things like, yeah, you could even raise your prices more than this. So overall, my clients have been very supportive. But the way that I let them know about this price increase was basically a newsletter. Back
Hmm.
in November of 2023, I sent out a newsletter and I referenced Simota's study saying that the average rate of a 60-minute massage is around $100 per hour. And I am raising my rate to just be on par with that.
Hmm.
So I gave them over 2 months' notice, like 2.5 months' notice. And I also put a little notice on my massage receipt template. So anybody who looks at their receipt between November and February will see that there's a notice on there saying, hey, there's going to be a $10 price increase going into effect on February 1st. And of course, I updated my website. I
Hmm.
probably should do a social media post. I'm just so terrible with
Social
advertising on
media.
social media. I will.
I
I'll
mean,
put something on social media probably.
you were very thorough. You were very thorough and gave people a huge time span in order to prepare for the upcoming price change, right? So it was November, December, January, so 3 months to prepare for it. Lots and lots of notice. And that's been my experience too. Every time I've increased my prices, it always universally worked out for the best for me. And have more bookings, or I would have more referrals. Strangely enough, so I certainly found that. But for you, what did you find the effect of increasing your price was on your practice?
No difference.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I lost any of my regular clients. If I did, I can't remember who they were.
It
So
mustn't have been that
fine.
regular.
Yeah. Yeah. And lots of new clients came last year. So I guess we have to talk about the effect that my most recent price increase has had, right? Because my new one hasn't gone into effect yet.
As of this conversation, yeah.
As of this conversation, it hasn't quite gone into effect, but I have lots of bookings already into March, so a month after
Mm-hmm.
the price goes into effect. So it hasn't stopped my regular clients in any way
Yeah.
from booking. And over the last year, I got so busy that in October, I had to stop taking new clients. So I don't think it's
Mm.
made any negative effect at all. Mhm.
So I mean, this is a little off script, and it's kind of going into how one chooses their prices, right? So, as you went through this process, you ended up settling on the method of figuring out the industry standard, both by doing the research yourself and then looking at that amazing report that C-Motor released. But then there's other ways that people end up choosing how much to charge their services for, and it's charge how much you want to make, right? You kind of like do the reverse math. Like I want to make $100 an hour, and I've got these expenses and these expenses. Therefore, I need to charge $190 an hour in order to make what I really want to make. So there's like that method.
I don't think that's it either. It's how much do I need to make to cover my bills?
Hmm.
That's what I've seen online is people say that you should set your prices based on how much you need to make in order to cover your expenses. And I think that's complete bullshit because if your expenses are like excessive, why should your clients have to pay for that? This is an extreme example, but
Hmm.
say you have a very expensive car.
Mhm.
Why should your clients have to take on that expense, especially if you're not worth it? Like it's completely absurd to me that people would recommend that you set your prices based on what you need to make in order to cover your expenses.
Mhm.
It's completely unethical,
Yeah.
actually, I would say. Yeah. And I do also want to add that although I have so far used what the average rate of a massage is in order for me to adjust my rates, moving forward, as I move into higher than average rates, I will use a different set of criteria, which probably is going to have a lot to do with the amount of money and time and effort that I have put into my career through various continuing education pursuits, to be honest.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, that's reflected in the value what a person gets, right? So when they walk through the door, eventually, like we talked the future, they're going to be receiving an amazing massage experience, sure, but they're also going to be experiencing much, much more than that. And I do believe that should also be reflected in the price as well.
Yeah, baby steps though,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I didn't want to jack up my prices by I think $10 a year is reasonable and more than that for me was starting to feel like a pretty big jump.
Hmm.
So, I'm still pretty fresh, I'm only 4 years in. I've got time to build my rates to a place where I feel really truly
Hmm.
satisfied with. I'm happy-ish with average for now,
Yeah.
but in some ways, I do believe that the treatment experience that I provide is above average.
I would, there's no arguing that, I believe. I know exactly what you provide, and I've also been to many, many different practitioners, and I know that it is way above and beyond. So, throughout this entire experience, were there any significant takeaways that you had as you went through this exploration?
Yeah, I mean, you never really know what you're gonna get, but that wasn't a key takeaway because I kind of knew that going in. I think everybody knows that going in. I chit chat with my clients about that sometimes, especially when you're going to a spa. You never really know what you're gonna get. Um, but I think one of the most significant takeaways I learned over the last year is that massage is truly about the experience.
Mm,
Yeah, it is about the skill of the therapist. Yes, that's true. But it's also about the interpersonal skills of the therapist, I would say, and all of the little things in between, from like booking and I don't even know what else, like the ambiance of the room, like so many things. There's
mhm.
so many little things that create a awesome experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something really important to consider as well. That for the very, very vast majority of people who are getting a massage, it is a luxury. It's something that they can do only because they've got benefits to do
Mm,
so.
mhm,
And when we consider that actually makes up the majority of people coming to see us, they're coming to see us as a luxury, as a treat. It really seems like the thing you do on the table matters, but people are paying for an experience. They're
mhm.
they're gifting themselves this
Yeah.
hour, hour and a half, whatever it is, where they're doing something special. I
Mhm.
mean, how many people get excited about it? Like, oh, I can't wait for my massage. It's the
Yeah.
the thing they look forward to each
Mhm,
month.
mhm,
So it seems like it isn't just about the table stuff. It's not just about the technique, right? It's the whole experience.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say that that being said, the technique definitely matters,
Mhm.
so I don't wanna contradict myself too much. However, one of the experiences I had over the past year was with a therapist who I thought was really sweet. Like, she had a really great therapeutic presence, and I felt, like, cared for by her, and she seemed to consider many little touches before I even got on the table, which I appreciated. And then I got on the table and, well, some of her interpersonal skills went a little bit out the window because I do remember not liking, not appreciating how much talking there was about herself.
Hmm.
And also, this is my main point though, the technique itself just wasn't awesome. You
Hmm.
know, the massage itself wasn't awesome. And speaking earlier, we mentioned about um how it sucks to drive to a massage stressed out. I remember something happened. Maybe I was running behind late. I usually, am running out the house to make it to things on time.
No.
I just remember my neck was all jacked up by the time I got there. Something on the way there for me was very very stressful, and for me my stress manifests in my neck. Look at me holding my
I
neck just as
see
I
there.
just as I recall this experience. It's like my body remembers the stress that manifested in my neck on the drive there. And the massage was it was below average, and I remember feeling like my neck somehow feels worse now than when I arrived. And it's not that she did an aggressive treatment on my neck. It was a really disappointing neck
Hmm.
massage. Maybe I was longing for more, and that's why it was so disappointing. But technique, definitely, it matters.
I think it's very important to emphasize that, and I'm really glad you're bringing it up because I go on and on and on and on and on about how technique matters, but and I always kind of like put it into the back seat as far as everything else that is helpful for practitioners. But there is no question. There's just no question that technique does matter. One needs to be able to provide a really really good massage.
Mhm.
So what is that for you? Like when you think about the massages that you receive where not necessarily all of the other stuff, but you're on the table and it's just like, oh, this is a good massage.
This
What?
is so easy for me. It's
Okay.
so simple. And I get so ugh about this because it's so simple.
Hmm.
Just slow the down.
Hmm.
Just slow it down, people. Like, slow it down. See how long it takes you to strip the spinal erectors with the appropriate amount of pressure. For me, I like a slow stroke. That's it. But it has to be, of course, with that being said, it has to also come with the right amount of pressure,
Hmm.
because if it's too light and it's slow, God, that would be painful.
Like not physically
Not
painful, like
physically painful,
psychologically painful.
psychologically painful. Yeah, like, oh my God. Yeah, so it's a combination of pressure for sure, like finding your clients or finding my happy pressure place. And
Mhm.
what I like to do when I'm treating people, especially when they're new to me, is what I'll say to them is I like to use a scale of 1 to 10 in order to find what is the right amount of pressure for you, because everybody's different. So the 1 is like not enough pressure at all. The 10 is way too much pressure. It's painful. We're not going to go to a 10. The highest we're going to go, the highest I intend to go to is a 7. And 7 should feel like the perfect amount of pressure for you. And if we go a little bit past 7, like into the 8 range, your brain is going to start labeling it more as pain than pressure. And you can just let me know, like, hey, that's around an 8. So then I know that we're close. It's just a little bit too far. Or maybe we're only at a 5, and then I know I can go a little bit deeper. So I always find my clients 7, their sweet spot first, before I do this slow technique. So
Mhm.
find the appropriate amount of pressure for your client, communicate with them, figure it out, ask them for feedback, and then slow it down.
I appreciate the languaging you chose as well, because asking a client to tell me if it's too much, tell me if you need more. A lot of people have a barrier to that, like to tell a therapist that's too much pressure, that's too little pressure. But simply stating the numeric value, that takes a lot of the I guess the weird feeling out of requesting something specific.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right, all right. So we went a little bit off track there, but I certainly appreciate that discussion as well. Now, as you finished this or went through this project and you were reflecting on it all, were there any unexpected lessons? Anything that really stood out as like, wow?
Hmm. I don't know if I could say that there's anything that really stood out as wow, but I know based on your most recent experience going in for a cranio session where there was a bit of an issue with the intake form.
Mhm.
Um, I think for me, something that was kind of unexpected was that having the intake forms kind of electronically sent basically in place, taken care of before the treatment, for me, I really like that. Or if I'm being honest, if I'm being a little bit more blunt, I really didn't like when a therapist would send me like a PDF document or a Word document before the massage, and I either had to like print it out and bring it or send it back to them. It felt like an inconvenience to me, especially because I do all of my intake forms online. It's easy for me, it's easy for them. So I just remember when I was asked to print the form and
Mhm.
bring the form with me.
Mhm.
It's little, it's such a little thing, I know, but it's just an extra inconvenience for the client to have to do that, and I don't think it's necessary. It's pretty cheap to sign up to get, like, electronic health record system that does the intake for you.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's really, for me, not a good reason not to have something like that in place.
Removing friction. I think over the last few years, shifting my work more from teaching in classroom and practicing to starting running a business. Like it's all about reducing friction for your customers and clients. Every little bit of friction you reduce increases the likelihood of rebookings, increases the likelihood of referral. And for me, that's a major point of friction. You mentioned that experience I had recently, and I was downright frustrated.
Mhm.
Just even, and I couldn't find the address. Like, how can I not find the address?
Mhm.
So there's these things leading up to the session that for me make a world of difference in the overall experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that note, like, being clear about parking, that's something else I found was if parking was a little bit of a headache, it
Hmm.
would have been nice to have some heads up about, "Hey, it's paid parking here,"
Yeah.
or, "You can get free parking here," or "Show up early
Hmm.
if you're concerned about parking." These kinds of little tips help to reduce friction, as you
Yeah.
said, so that when your client does show up, you've already taken some steps to eliminate any potentials for stress. Mhm.
Starting the treatment before you started the treatment.
That's it.
Yeah, and it goes back to that luxury experience thing. Just the
Yeah.
whole thing. It is a luxury for people, and maybe we should treat it as a luxury experience.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
I definitely agree with this idea of starting the experience. Is that what you said?
Yeah, starting the experience or starting the treatment before the treatment or
Starting the
something like that.
treatment before the
I don't
treatment.
remember what I said, but it was brilliant,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah, it's true though.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Based on your experience, what advice then would you give to a massage therapist who's considering starting a home based business, whether or not they're fresh out of school or perhaps they are working in a clinic for somebody else and they're like, I want to do home based. What would you say?
What I tell people is choose an EHR system, a booking system, intake system that you feel good about from the beginning, that you think you're going to stick with for some time, because we've switched so many times and switching is not an awesome experience. But aside from that, just get one. It
Hmm.
makes it a better experience for your client, and ultimately, it's going to make it a better experience for you too.
Yeah, funnily enough, I think that's one of the more popular Instagram reels is do it right the first time.
Mm,
And I'm like, this is like the single most important thing I could say to somebody starting out in business is just put the investment in. You think it might feel like a lot in the beginning, but it pays for itself very quickly and it is well worth it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's one thing I would say. Yeah, do it right the first time. Pick yourself a booking system that you like. Get that set up from the beginning. Even if you're slow, just get it set up. Oh, on that note, especially for brand new RMTs, you're going to be slow. You could work at 8 a.m. or 9 p.m. And I think that it's important to set your hours and stick to them. So even though you technically could see a client at any time of day, pick your hours. I work 1 to 5 on Mondays, for example. and stick to them.
Hmm.
Just get those locked in and in place. That's, I think, a really important practice. And I'd also say to anyone who is just thinking about switching to home based or brand new RMTs, don't lower your rates too much just because you work from home.
Hmm.
You'll hear some people who say that they charge less for working from home because the overhead is less. And
Yeah.
in some ways that's true. I can appreciate that. And I mean, in some ways the data reflect that, right? My research showed that it's around $15 less to go with a home-based practitioner rather than in a spa or a clinic. But don't price yourself too low for that reason alone.
There's a lot more at play, I think, because when you're doing a home-based business, you are your receptionist, you are
Yes.
the janitor, you
Yes.
do the laundry,
Yeah.
like you play all of these roles, and all of that stuff that occurs in a brick and mortar clinic, it still exists with a home-based business. There's just nobody to do it except for
Yeah.
yourself. So you suddenly have to become a business person and a marketer. And
Yeah.
so I agree that I don't think the prices should be lower
No.
because you're actually getting paid for like five jobs instead of just
Totally.
one. Hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In fact, sometimes, admittedly, I feel like I would just love to show up for work at a clinic and just take my 60% and not have to clean all the time and not have to bill and reception and all of the different hats that I wear
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur. It's worth it to charge more or less the same as what spas, not spas. Spas are like their own kind of animal
Mhm.
with the pools and the sauna. Okay, fine, you get the whole like spa experience. But clinics, more or less the same as what you would be paying in a clinic.
Yeah. And I really also appreciate and want to draw attention to the picking your time and sticking with it. I think one of the best bits of advice is if you ever get a text message as a home based practitioner that says, "Hey, can you fit me in?" There's just a copy and paste thing you have somewhere on your phone that says, "Here's a link to my booking page. Pick a time and date that works best," because it is so easy to be like, "I got nothing on the go this afternoon," which you
Yeah.
know what? For some people, totally fine.
Fine.
Is fine. But that can get out of hand
It
real
can.
quick.
Yeah, it can get out of hand.
All right, so there's your advice for any individual or practitioner who wants to start a home based business. But after all of this, from maybe a higher level perspective, do you have any advice or tidbits or bits of wisdom or knowledge for any massage therapist that might be listening that you picked up throughout the last year?
Yeah, I mean, besides the whole like things that we just talked about, getting an online booking system or whatever, do your best to check in on your clients' comfort. Get a magic bag or a beanie bag, warm up their feet, get a table warmer. Just these little things, they really add up to a a better experience, I think. So if you're keen to provide an experience, I think it's not just about the techniques that you provide, but it's also about the little things. So take some of the little things into account. And the last thing I want to say is get yourself a massage every month and even pay for them time to time because trades, they're fine. But I find in my experience with doing trades, and I do them often, is the opportunity for chit chat and catching up kind of increases when you're doing a trade. Not with
Mhm.
everybody, but it increases for sure. So pay for a massage even and potentially pay for a massage with somebody new. Like try somebody new from time to time and you might learn something from them. And even if they don't have a technique that particularly speaks to you, maybe you learn what not to do. And that's
Mhm.
still going to lead to you being a better therapist. So I'm going to continue getting massages every month, probably from new practitioners, just because I've really enjoyed the learning
Mhm.
experience. But if that's not your cup of tea, definitely you want to get yourself on the table so that you remember what it's like to be the
Mhm.
client.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate how the approach you took is to remember what it's like to be a client, as opposed to the typical advice that just, oh, take care of yourself and do your self care. But there's more to it than that, as far as getting a
Yeah,
massage.
there's more to it to that for sure. Like the self-care piece is important. We
Mhm.
work hard and our work is hard on our bodies, but aside from that, there's also remembering what it is like to be a client
Mhm.
so that you can be a better therapist for your clients. So it's in part receiving, taking care of your body, and it's also in part still learning.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. So I think we can wrap up unless there's anything else. I have one more question to ask, but if there's anything else you want to add about this the olive oil experiment or the olive oil project that you think would be helpful, if not, I just have one final question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's coming to mind. But that being said, I'm curious for you, having heard my experiences every month coming home and
Mhm.
telling you about them. At the beginning of this episode, you said that it was an interesting experience for you. I want to ask you what you noticed.
Mhm. Well, we've chatted about this, of course, off and on throughout the entire process. And even in the last few days, getting ready to have this conversation, I've heard some of what you had to say, but this is the first time we've really sat down and heard it beginning to end. So a lot of my discoveries are similar to yours, but one of the big things that I learned was how unbelievably important the little tiny details are. The things that for me, I'm not that detail oriented, particularly with my primary education being in acupuncture, and that's my primary practice where you lie on a piece of paper on a uncomfortable table with blaring lights on. Like that's how we learn, right?
Yeah,
All of the little details, like making sure that the table is in a comfortable place for you and the client, and making sure that the sharps container thing, like how much time you spent trying to get the sharps container out of the view of the client. So,
that's what I do.
yes, that's what you do. Yeah.
This is so funny that you bring this up because, so just for the listeners out there, sometimes Jess and I will do a combo treatment where he'll do acupuncture on a client first, and then immediately after he's done, he sends me down and I massage them. And sometimes I go down and I'm just like, what is the bolster doing so high up on their shin? Or why aren't their feet even covered with the blanket? Or
Yeah.
why aren't the beanie bags on their feet? The
Oh, they're
table
fine.
warmer's not even on,
They're
or just like,
fine.
like all of these
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that it's easy, like you said, to overlook because you're a doctor
Mhm.
of acupuncture, right? It's so much less about the experience for doctors of acupuncture,
Mhm.
but massage, it is about the experience. And yes, I did have to move that sharps container because there's nothing relaxing about looking about a big
No.
bright yellow
No.
biohazard sign when you're trying to enjoy a nice relaxing massage.
Yeah. But I mean that whole thing is really made an impact on me, not just you and I sharing a treatment space, but also the reflections you had about all of these little tiny things of the experience, many of which we didn't even talk about, just the things you would say about a tiny little thing that somebody did that really made you feel cared for. And as you say, yes, my primary practice, of course, is doctor of acupuncture, and that's what I do. But starting to incorporate these more mindful things more and more is making a big difference, I believe, on my client's overall experience. So, really, really focusing on the experience. So that made a huge impact. And another thing made a huge impact, which we've already talked about, so I don't want to dig into it, is the experience before the experience, everything leading up to it, the booking process, the intake form. Like the intake form that you've made is amazing. Like so amazing, I literally made a YouTube video on it.
You did?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did.
What?
The questions, all of the important questions that again add to these details. Do you like music? You know, what kind of music? Like all these things that you ask even before the person gets there that really shows I'm paying attention to you and I really want this to be an important and special occasion for you. So I think those are all the things that have made a big difference.
I'm so happy you brought that up because there's a few more things I want to say, and you bringing up the music piece has reminded me. This is just my opinion, but for me, Music during a massage should probably be lyricless. And this is probably based a little bit on my training in somatic experiencing and just like what it means to be trauma informed. But, if you go for a massage, and even if it's nice, kind of soft indie-ish music, the lyrics can trigger people. You never know. It
You
it
never
could
know.
really bring them out of their body, their felt experience, and into the mind, which in my opinion is the opposite of what we're trying to do. So, in my opinion, the music should probably be lyricless, no
Agreed.
lyrics.
Totally.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. And then something else that I just remembered, in addition to asking people about their music preferences, is also asking people if it's okay to cup them.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, I had more than one experience. I think 3 experiences out of 12 where I was just cupped without being asked. And for the most part, I'm fine with that. I mean, maybe they did it because I'm an RMT, or maybe it was a question on their intake form and I just forgot. I don't think so, but let's just give people the benefit of the doubt. I personally would never cup somebody without getting their permission first, especially because, there's the risk of bruising.
Hmm. Yeah, and you never know if they're going on a Mexican trip or something like that, and it's bikini season, and they don't want
That's
cup
it.
marks. Yeah,
Or maybe they're going to a photo shoot right after.
right.
Love Dr. Andy, but
Hmm.
God, she cut me right before that photo shoot.
That's true. That's true. You did get cup right before the photo
At
shoot.
least it was heart shaped, I
Yeah.
guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So the final question, the one that I ask virtually every single person, in your experience, both as a practitioner and one who has received multiple different experiences, both in the world of massage or counseling or gyro, whatever type of practice, just overall, what exactly do you think uh, helps a practitioner become successful?
Easy. Work on yourself.
Easy.
Yeah. Like, confront your own shadows, do your own inner work. Yeah, work on your interpersonal skills, especially your communication skills. This is big. And, you know, one of the things that I found over the last year was I really liked it when a therapist would communicate back to me what I wanted to do in my time with them. My forearms are sore, my neck is sore, and then they would say back to me, "Okay, so we're going to start with this and then we're going to do this. Is that okay? Does that sound like a good treatment plan to you?"
Hmm.
So, really working on communication skills to make sure that your client feels heard and seen and validated. Mhm.
Easy.
Hard, but also easy. I mean,
Hmm.
the answer for me was easy. Like, it's just
Yeah.
that's what I believe. It's hard work for sure,
Hmm.
but I believe that it would probably lead to um, clients who stick with you for a really long time.
Yeah. Love it.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, it's a great chat.
Yeah, it was.
There we go. Same time next year.
Same time next year.